and we are in Module 2's conversation with myself and Jim. The focus of this particular conversation is going to be on the status quo, because we just brought you through a breakdown of the conversion call, which we're going to go into more detail in the later modules. But for now, the focus, as I mentioned, is status quo. So what is status quo, Jim? And also, well, let's talk about decisions.
Okay, so when you study negotiations or influence, but especially in negotiations, for example, Dr. Max Bazerman in his book, Negotiating Genius, speaks about status quo. And what this is a state that we all seek. Basically, a place of resonance, a place where we're at peace, even if we have to be miserably comfortable, where there's predictability, where there's routine, where there's a coping mechanism going on. And we call this the status quo, and we don't want to move out of it because we have come to a place of certainty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's predictable, we know what's going on, we get the weekly paycheck, we go home, etc., right? And it becomes basically, it sucks the life. It sucks the life out of us, right? Because what it does is it basically puts us in a hole, and we dig into that hole, and this is status quo.
Yeah.
Right?
So the call that we talked about in this module, the 4-phase conversion call, this is used to extract us from the status quo?
Exactly,
Okay.
because this is a process, an extraction process. Because here's, if I could,
Let's explain that.
All right. So here's where most people, and when they're attempting to sell, when they're in the transactional state, what they ask for and what they seek is a decision for that person they're speaking to engage in their product and service. And the way that they frame the decision is a forward moving, and it's always this conversation of attraction, to move towards me, be appealed, to have an appeal for my product, to have an appeal for the way that I've priced it, to have an urgency, right? But what we always forget is the actual appropriate focus, which is to focus backwards, right? Because it's in looking backwards that we actually see where that prospect or where that client is, what their status quo is, and from there we can begin to extract. So we don't ask a forward move from in a decision, right? Because the word itself, decision, comes from the Latin de, which means from, and cessare, which means to cut, right? So what is a decision? It's a cutting away from where you are so that now you're free to consider to move into a new place and establish a new status quo.
Exactly.
Right?
We almost did that at perfect timing, Jim. So the status quo is critical, as we talked about, and we are extracting with this call. So there's a couple of key parts of this call. So if you were to choose, say, one or two areas of the 4-phase call to focus in on and to really master, and that's really different that we do, what would you say those two bits are? I know what I think they are.
Well, you know, it brings up something funny because most people have been exposed to a step selling, right? The 10 steps or the 5 steps or the 14 steps, right? And I've had managers that would ask, what's the most important step in selling? And the answer, of course, is the one you're in, right? So it's a perfect execution of the step or the phase that you're in that will get you to the next phase. But if we had to really dig in and identify what we would think is the most important aspect of this, number one, it would be establishing authority, creating authority so that the prospect is willing to allow the questioning, the conversation to take place, and to allow themselves to be extracted, which is what the process is designed to do, and then to move forward. And then the second phase I would think would be actually well, what do you think, Steve?
Well, I would imagine the cognitive dissonance phase is critical, because I can just say from my perspective, when I was first mentored by yourself, Jim, and I implemented the cognitive dissonance portion of the call in to my business, the changes I saw were massive instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly. So whenever we look at this 4-phase call and we talk about status quo and that sort of thing, that is critical to understand and have the intention to move our prospects out of their status quo. And just know that by adding, if all you did was add in the cognitive dissonance portion of the call into your business, you will dramatically increase what you're doing.
Immediately.
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 And so one thing you told me about, we're kind of tired of learning, we're ready to start earning, right?
That's correct. We're
Yeah.
ready to start earning. In other words, what is required in order to earn is a system that we can execute into, because again, throw all the sales books on your shelf away because they're not focused on the appropriate mechanism to convert at massive levels. They're designed to facilitate. They're mostly all tactical
Yeah.
and designed to make you a better transactional salesman. And the
Yeah.
truth is, it's never a winning game.
No, because again, if all sales were based on being transactional, brands like Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Ferrari, Lamborghini, all these brands do not sell on a transactional basis. They are value driven. They use their marketing to convey the fact they're a luxury brand.
Correct.
So we have an opportunity now as coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs to position ourselves as a luxury brand. And with this strategy, you will move into and have availability to actually become a luxury brand in your own niche.
Yeah, because and people may be asking, well, how is that possible, right? Because we always want to know how.
Exactly.
We're all tactical,
Yeah.
right? We've been
Sure.
we've been conditioned to be tactical.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? Well, the truth is this: is that the process itself, based upon cognitive dissonance, is in fact a coaching and counseling technology,
Yeah.
right? And so it allows the individual that we're speaking to free themselves, to extract themselves from their status quo and to move into their desires, move into their intentions in a way that they've never been able before.
Yeah.
And they see that in you. They see
Absolutely.
you as the pathway.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a very simple idea, really, when you think about it. So it's the old genie comes out of the bottle and says you have 3 wishes, right?
Yes.
And you now are almost like a genie in a way because you are giving these people what they've been looking for their whole life.
Yes.
You're giving them resonance to the cognitive dissonance that they're facing every single day in their existence. So you think about it yourself. You've faced this feeling of unease and dissatisfaction for many years, and somebody comes along and says, I can make this all go away.
Yes.
How much would you value that? This is going to change your life. Your life is worth infinite amounts of money. So don't fear this part of the process. This is really exciting. This is what I've learned. And even with me, when I understood this technology, there's times, Jim, whenever I used to price myself ineffectively, even after I learned the methodology, I still had some of the debris of limiting belief on me. And do you know what people used to say? I thought you were going to ask me for a lot more.
Ah.
I'm surprised you only asked for that
Yes.
much. And that is what's available to you. So I hope you enjoyed this talk about the status quo, making sure we're extracting people through this process, mastering cognitive dissonance, because that really is the game. And of course, you're going to make a lot more money when you get this. So hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next module.